people earlier on my Instagram if they had any questions for me, because I decided to do a Q&A video, and I got a lot of good questions, so I'm going to go ahead and answer some of them right now. Charlie wanted to be my assistant today, and I had to oblige because he's so cute. And please excuse my insane hairdo today, but it's approximately 8,000% humidity, and it's like... So, let me get to them. Let's see. I apologize. I guess I should have had the questions open before I started this video. So that's why you guys see a little better angle. Really, I guess it's going to stay there. Okay, so let's see some of these questions. Okay, one of them is, what kind of gecko diet do you prefer and use? So for my fruit-eating geckos, my crested geckos, gargoyle geckos, jay geckos, I think that's all of my fruit-eating geckos, I use Pangea. It's my favorite one. I've used different diets before, but it seems to be a favorite of all of the geckos here. I've tried Rapashi before. I've tried, I don't remember one of the other ones, but they seem to respond the best to Pangea. They completely clean out their bowls. So I actually have all 3 flavors of Pangea, and I rotate them, so every feeding I give them a different flavor, and they seem to love all of them equally. I guess maybe watermelon is their favorite, but they clear their bowls for all of them. And I've never seemed to have any issues with it at all. My breeders eat it, my babies eat it, so they really seem to love Pangea. That's definitely a favorite around here. I do sometimes feed bugs. Not all of my geckos will eat bugs. The day geckos do. Some of my crusteds do, like the breeders tend to... One second. Where are you going, Charlie Bugs? Come sit here. You want to sit and watch the video? Some of my breeders do eat bugs. It's funny, actually, because some of them didn't start eating bugs until they started laying eggs, and then I guess they knew they needed the extra protein and fat and started chasing bugs. Some of my babies and adolescents eat bugs, some don't. So I'll offer it here and there. Especially during breeding season, I do give the females more bugs to give them the extra protein. And occasionally I do make my own gecko diet, which I wouldn't advise unless you have a lot of experience and know good things to put in there. And I don't use it on a daily or every feeding, because I don't know that is 100% perfect, but I do sometimes make up my own gecko food with like organic fruits like mango, banana. I've used strawberry before, and then sometimes I'll mix in some seeds, some vitamins, calcium. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of coconut oil, things like that. So that's what I feed my geckos. I have a lizard on the loose. Let's see, another question. What experience have you had with prolapses, and what are the best things to do for a better chance of them successfully recovering? I do have experience with prolapses. One time it happened with my breeder male after he was breeding. He had a hemipenal prolapse. I thankfully noticed it, I think, right away. The sooner you notice it, the higher success you'll have of fixing it. So what I did for my gecko was I soaked him in warm sugar water for, I would say, probably about an hour. I just kept, you don't want it to be too hot, but you do want it to be a little bit warm because that does reduce the inflammation. So I would kind of change out the water every like 15 minutes or so and put warmer water in there and lots of sugar. The sugar helps reduce the inflammation and should help it go back in. For Roscoe was the one who prolapsed. He was the gecko in my last video. And I soaked him for a while. Bugs, you gotta sit down. I soaked him for a while in the sugar water, and usually that's enough, but it didn't seem to be going away on its own. So as you guys know, I keep my animals in bioactive substrates, which can be an issue for prolapse. You don't want anything to get caught on the hemipenes or dry it out. If it dries out, then they will dry up and you'll have to have them removed. So what I did after like about an hour of soaking him is I put him in a sterile, or not a sterile, but an empty vivarium I had, and just lined it with paper towel, no loose substrate or anything. And then I made sure the humidity was really, really high so that his hemipenes didn't dry out at all. And I put some honey, some raw honey on his hemipenes, which has a couple of different effects. One, it will keep it moist so that it doesn't dry out. Two, it also reduces inflammation, especially if you have raw honey, because there's a lot of good antibacterial properties in there, so it'll help prevent infection and also reduce inflammation. Bugs, where are you going? He's trying to drink my drink. And also, it'll cause them to, it caused, in my case at least, for Roscoe, it caused him to lick his hemipenes repeatedly because he liked the sugar, and it helped get them back in. So that was my experience. Soak in warm sugar water and then apply some honey if they haven't gone in on their own after the sugar water soak. Bugs, sit still, please. If they haven't gone away on their own after the sugar water soak, do the honey and then keep them in a really wet vivarium. If it doesn't, if the prolapse doesn't fix itself on its own within, I would say, like 10 hours, definitely consult a vet, because there are times where the hemipenes will not go back in and it needs to be amputated. So definitely call your vet if there's an issue and you can't get it back in. Let's see, another question. What other questions should we ask, Bugs? Or should we read? Let's see. Do you have any 5-line skinks? Actually, I took in a 5-line skink rescue a couple of months ago, but unfortunately it was really sick when I took it in and it didn't last very long. It passed away a couple of weeks after I got it. So I did have one for a short period of time as a rescue, but no, I don't own any as pets. I'm not really that into skinks, so the only experience I really have with them is taking them in as rescues. I've never owned one as a pet. Let's see if there's another question. What was your first animal? Charlie? My first animal was a bearded dragon named Frankie. Some of you actually know of him. I used to post about him all the time. He actually died last June of old age. I got him about a year ago. Charlie, you're killing me. I got him about a year ago. I'm sorry. I got him about a decade ago, and he passed away of old age last year, but he was my first reptile ever. He's the one that started it all, made me fall in love with reptiles and everything about them. And I would have to say that even with all the experience I have and all of the rare animals that I keep, bearded dragons definitely have a special place in my heart. I think it's because they did get me into the industry, and they have such awesome personalities, and all of them have such different personalities. I love them. I have 6 beardies right now. I will always own beardies as long as I own reptiles. They're just absolutely my favorite. I think they're so smart and so much fun. So that was my first animal, and I would say like my favorite species. But I do own a lot of different species, and I do love lots of different species. And this little guy is going to be in trouble in a minute. And see if there's anything else I should answer right now. Any important tips on bearded dragon care? Yeah, actually I do have some tips. UV light is very, very important. Most people know that, but some people who are just getting into bearded dragons don't realize how crucial it is to have a good UV light for their beardies. So I use the Reptisun bulbs in Reptisun 10.0, and I use a long tube. You don't want to use a coil that doesn't put off enough UV light for a bearded dragon. Reptisun 10.0 in the tube is really the only UV light that I recommend for bearded dragons. It's what I've been using for almost since I got beardies. I've used them for a long time. I've never had any issues with them. It's strong enough for them. Power Sun is a bulb that's both UV and heat, and I've never heard any complaints about that, but I don't use them personally just because they're so expensive, and I live in a place where it can get like really hot or really cold, and I don't have any AC, and I don't really have very good heat. So during the summer I like to change my bulbs out and lower the wattage so that they throw off less heat, and in the winter I like to up the wattage so that I can put off more heat. And unfortunately with the PowerSun, it only comes in 2 different wattages. It's like 100 watt and 150 watt. And B, because it's so much money, it's just not cost effective to own a lot of extra PowerSuns to be switching them out. And sometimes I can go from like a 50 watt bulb in the summer to like a 150 watt bulb in the winter. And so for me personally, I just like to have a different UV light and heat bulb so that I can change the heat bulb out as needed and not have to worry about my UV light. So the PowerSuns are okay, but if your house stays a pretty steady temperature all year long, if it doesn't, I wouldn't really recommend using it, just because a lot of people need to change the bulbs for winter bulbs and summer bulbs. So Reptisun 10.0, I can't say enough good things about it. And I also have a couple of outdoor enclosures for my bearded dragons, so all of them go out in the sun, usually on a weekly basis. Well, usually at least once a week I try to get them out. Some of them go out more. Sometimes the babies go out more, and it depends on my weather, obviously. But I like to get them outside as much as possible because there's nothing better for them than the sun. Even my healthy animals, I like to try and get them outside, because even though the Reptisun 10.0 is a great bulb and is the best one on the market, it's still, nothing's going to compare to the sun. So if you own a beard, you try and get them outside sometimes for some natural sunlight. It'll definitely help. I noticed that on days where I get my animals outside, or I'm sorry, my beardies outside for a while in the warm sun, Charlie bugs, they are always more active later that day and the next day. They always seem to eat more. Their colors are brighter. It just makes a world of difference getting them outside. So, this video has been way longer than I thought it would be. I apologize, because I don't know if you guys like watching my long videos. Charlie is trying to dig a hole on my desk. I think I covered some really good questions on here. If you guys have more questions, I didn't answer all of them, feel free to leave me some more questions on my Instagram or on my YouTube here, and I can definitely do another Q&A down the road. If you have any questions about anything I said in this video, leave some comments down below, or leave some comments on my Instagram or Facebook, and I'd be more than happy to address them for you. I hope this video was helpful and gave you some more info about me. Thanks guys, bye.